I guess if we start by saying, if you think back to 12 months ago and where you were physically, mentally and everything, how have you changed in the last year if you contrast, yourself then with yourself now?
Well, a year ago I was looking forward to this year and to be able to achieve what I've actually done. I was also thinking of having, there's other things that I've thought that I haven't done. I was aiming for Paris, and I had said, all right, Paris is for me this year, blah, 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 blah. And happened to be that I was in form a bit too early, and I never performed. Well, I performed okay, but I completely cracked on the last day of Paris on the last hill climb. But then I was also saying, right, I'm going to have a shot at the Tour as a teammate, and I'm going to be hopefully leader for the Vuelta, and it's my job to make the most out of it. So I think things worked out in that perspective.
You said you were going, I think, very well last winter, maybe too well early on. Was that the case, that you overdid it in the winter?
I think so. I got really overexcited with the move and saying, all right, I want to put a mark on straight away and start on a high note. And I started off well with Tourmed and Ovar, and then these races there, and I was flying in the training camp, which was useless. And by the time I arrived to the more important races, such as Paris, Catalonia, I had already accumulated a lot of tiredness, and I kind of struggled. And looking back at it now, it's always easy, and maybe it was I should have taken a breather after Paris and not ride Catalonia and Pays Basque with one or the other. But at that stage I was like, oh no, next week's going to be better, and I just kind of dug deep, or too soon anyway. But that was part of the things, it's part of the experience as well. Now I know that this year I have to don't get as excited and just kind of recalculate a bit more my winter training.
What sort of things did you run into? I think you've mentioned that your diet, there was changes to the nutritional products you were using with the new team. There was probably changes in bike position, training methods, etc. So can you just talk about the various things that you maybe took a couple of months to get familiar with, having moved to a new setup?
Yeah, well, I worked for many years with a dietitian that follows me in Cannes, and it's been working well. This year the team brought up their own dietitian. It was a first, and obviously this guy comes and he started working with us, and he was giving us his ideas and his feedback. And diets are very it's like a physio. When you go to the osteopath, some guys love him because it's a firm hold, and the other guy don't like him because he doesn't feel that he's safe or whatever. I think it's the same with a dietitian. Some diet suits you better than others, and the guy who's sitting beside me is probably the opposite. But anyway, I just thought that it was a new experience, and I was changing teams to try new things, and we tried this diet. And I think, but I can't blame it on the diet. I think it was more about me getting overexcited, then plus the tiredness, plus this diet didn't suit me up. You were talking earlier on about supplements, but it wasn't supplements. So it was only about the actual proper food. I tried this kind of it's a bit of a fashion at the moment of fatty acids and all this, like avocado for breakfast, lunch and dinner and all this crap, and just didn't work out for me. So that, plus the overtiredness, plus the excessive early racing and the overexcitement in January meant that I was having a tough month of April.
You made changes to your bike position, particularly time trial. Can you talk about that, how the process worked out and how ultimately it benefited you?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in the winter, already back in November last year in the first training camp, working around the bike positioning. Spent 4 or 5 days on the track in Italy and in the wind tunnel. There was 4 or 5 of us. There was Michael Rogers there, Benatti, Roman, myself, and then some mechanics and technical staff from the team, and we had a good 5 days work. Our team coach was there as well, and we did some very efficient work there. Just playing. It takes a long time for one rider, so it was extremely long to get there all 4, because sometimes you play with a couple of mil here and a couple of mil there, and you have to do the whole protocol again to get the numbers right. So you have to be patient. It takes a bit of time, and that's why we took it over those kind of 4 or 5 days. But you know, slowly but surely we were getting some interesting things, and Bjarne had some ideas, and I was prepared to try them. And you know, I always had I never felt really stable on the TT bike, so my arms were always a bit wider. And then Bjarne convinced me that no, because I have big shoulders, my main disadvantage was my shoulder exposure in the wind, and I had to have them as close as possible and just have to train like that and then get used to it. So I think that was the major improvement into the position. Like the rest was just like a couple of mil here and bring it forward, whatever. But changing bike size, I went down from small to extra small, but just the details that here and there that meant that we came up with some pretty interesting figures. And then once I was convinced that it was hard to get into, it's always better. You can always improve positions, but at least this one was one that I was convinced with. And then I trained hard on that one. And then, you know, when you arrive and you think that you're on and you're convinced that your position is good, it's already a good start.
Is it the case, I mean, are you more aerodynamic than before? Are you more powerful on the time trial bike, or is it a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both, because, you know, obviously when you're more aerodynamic, you need less power to go at the same speed. So you know, the power you develop is a bit more constant. So I think it's already the aerodynamic that made a difference at least start with.
If you look at the Tour de France, how do you feel that went, both for you and for the team?
I think it was there was some good points. You know, obviously we were firmly. I think it's fair to say that we arrived in the Tour and we all believed that we could win it. It didn't work out that way, and it was even hard to keep the podium over the last few days. But it's also very fair to say that every single day the team was thinking of a way to try and win it, and I think that's why both Roman and Alberto dropped off the podium over the last few days. It's just every single day it was like, all right guys, what are we going to do tomorrow to try and change the race? And we kept on trying, even though it seemed at some stage almost impossible that we were going to catch Froome, you know, unaware or unawake on a descent or whatever. But every day we kept on trying, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try this, we're going to try that. But the problem is when you try things, it also costs you a lot of energy. And I think that's why both of them lost their precious podium on the last day. But we were part of that thing, and the whole team we were ready to, and it was like, all right, let's try and win it. And it was part of the sacrifice, and the podium wasn't good enough at that stage, so it was all about trying.
What was Alberto's mentality like during the Tour? I mean, obviously he's won the race before, obviously he's determined to try and win it. So what did you see, you know, him day by day as he's going through this and getting closer to the end and realising maybe he's running out of time?
His determination, I think, until the last day, until Alpe d'Huez, until the really last day, the Col du Seminoles, every morning, like I said, he was determined that today he was going to try, and there was a possibility that it would work. And you know, his mental strength was also something that I learned. It's like, all right, like I was impressed that every day, even though he was beaten every day, I was like, no, it's not over. Paris is only in 2 days to go. It's not over. Maybe something can happen the last day. And then the second last day is like, no, Paris is only tomorrow. And fair play to him, because it was easy to lose the morale after the first loss in X3 Domaine, which is actually not one of the worst stages for Alberto, because it was hard for him to have a. He lost a lot of time on a lot of opponents that day, and then obviously he had some better days after that. But you know, when you lose the first battle, it's always hard to get going. But no, every single day he was like, no, that's it. I'm keeping going, and that was good for the teammates, because it keeps us really motivated and believing we can do it.
How does this put him for future years? I mean, do you think he's slightly discouraged by seeing how strong Froome was, or do you think he's more determined to come back stronger next year?
I think he's more determined to come back stronger. I think this year he's tried. He had a very heavy race program. I think he believed that he needed to race a lot to get back to the top level. I think it took him a year to find himself again, and I think next year he's going to come back stronger.
Looking at Froome, I mean, do you think Wiggins obviously was strong a year ago and wasn't as strong this year? Do you think Froome can come back as strong next year, or do you think there's a possibility that he too will slip back?
Well, they're two different cases. I think Wiggins played all his cards on last year's tour. He knew that if one time in his life, in his career, there was a possibility of him winning the tour, was last year, and he sacrificed, and he knew he could play a podium and some other tours or whatever, but if there was one of them where he could try and win, it was last year, and he played everything in last year. And he even admitted on I read one of his articles just before the tour back in June, saying that it took so much out of him that it would be impossible for him to do it again, and that was a fair comment. Froome is also much younger now, so why not? You know, when you're 35, or is Brad around 34, 35, isn't he? So your body reacts also very different than when you're 27, 28. So if Froome's going to come back as strong next year, you know, it's possible.
Is within the peloton, are Sky intimidating, you know, to see them ride as they do in the tour, or how do teams see them, and how do teams go forward, you know, seeing how well they've done the last 2 years?
Well, we've attacked them, so we were not intimidated. We believed that we could make them crack. We didn't. that was a fact when we arrived after 21 stages in Paris. But every morning, like I said, and I continue saying it, but we believed that we could. Okay, it didn't work out, but at least the intimidation side wasn't there. It is true that when you see them from kilometre zero, the first race of the year, the black train comes in front and it sets a tempo, and no one can attack because the tempo is high, and they kind of run people down, and then finally their top guy attacks and wins solo. It's a great tactic, but you know, I think they have a great way of racing, and they found out that this is the way that suits them, and they're able to manage it in the perfect way, and they win every race that when they have their plan to you know, when they stick to their plan. If all the teams are intimidated, then it's just about sitting and racing for second. Luckily enough, there's a lot of teams who are not intimidated and who know it's going to be difficult, and it has a lot of risk when you know, to attack Sky when they're riding at their tempo. But why not attack them? And you know, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But there has to be a bit of a balance here.
You've said that your own power levels in the tour were good, that it was an issue of an extra couple of kilos. Is that the case? That otherwise you feel you would have been more prominent in the climbs? Yeah,
I was actually feeling the form was there in the tour. Like you could see it on the flatter days, and when I needed to push the power on the flat, I was doing some. I was in a good condition. My issue was that I was still just about 2 kilos heavier than the other years. You know, my usual weight in the tour is around 69 and a bit. This year was more around 71 and a bit. So those extra 2 kilos that I wasn't able to lose for whatever reason, because of the weather wasn't as warm, because I don't know, maybe because I ate one day too much, or whatever excuse I can find myself. But anyway, this year I wasn't able to bring my weight down as much as the other years, and you know, in the tour there's no second chance. I found it already hard enough when I was at my good weight the other years, so having that 2 kilos extra obviously didn't help me. But then I was there in a different way. I was there in a supporting role to help on the flat. It's obvious that looking back at it now, I was like, oh, if I was in my top form in the tour, I could have been a better help and played another role in this and that. But I think that it's too late now to look back at that anyway. So it was the first time that I wasn't at my tour weight, because we'd call it like that, and for sure it handicapped me on those mountain stages. Did that, and also the fact that you had to ride for another guy instead of yourself, as was the case in previous years, is that what helped you stay so motivated after the tour, before the Vuelta? Well, for sure. Also because it was always clear since the start of the year, it was like, all right, you go in the tour, and then it's 5 years now I do Tour and Vuelta, so I know how to to recover between the Tour and the Vuelta, and this year was no different. I came out of the Tour and I was more motivated than after. It's like, all right, this page is done. My next chapter is the Vuelta in a bit over a month. This is what I'm going to do. Take my 3 days off, my few days a bit more chilled out. Stay focused till San Sebastian. Go to San Sebastian, which is a race I've always done good enough in, and it's one of the races that I really like during the year. After San Sebastian, go home 1 or 2 days, do my 2 or 3 crits to keep also. They're always nice to do 1 or 2 during after the Tour, and then straight up to altitude and stay away from family and people and isolate myself and think Vuelta for another 3 weeks, and then it worked.
Did you feel going into the Vuelta that you were in perhaps best ever shape, or did you have any kind of notion beforehand how well you would go?
Yeah, obviously, at this stage it's my 10th year now and 9th year, so I'm able to know if I'm top shape or not, and I was pretty confident. I've also, if you read my interviews before the Vuelta, maybe I was the only one to believe, but I said it, that I was coming in the Vuelta to be a top GC contender. I knew that when I was in the training camp, I was feeling great in the training camp, which was also kind of a medium news, because I knew I was going to be really good the first 2 weeks and it was going to be a bit tougher the third week, and it's a bit what happened. But then it's also hard, when you're going since the Tour, and even though you rest or whatever, but you're still doing 2 Grand Tours, and I felt that the first 10 days I was flying, and the last 10 days I was kind of already on the limit, and you could see it over the last 2 or 3 days. I was still trying hard, but it was I wasn't as strong as the first week. It was roughly the same last year, but last year riding the Tour in GC, I think I was even more tired the third week, but I think I was 6th or 7th till about 5 days to go last year. And then in the famous Quinto Negro crazy stage, I suffered, and then the next day as well, and I dropped from 7th to 8th to 10th, and then finally on the last day down to 12th. But it was a similar kind of profile. Like, I arrived in top form the first 2 weeks, and then I suffered the third week, where usually in the Tour is usually the opposite. I'm usually a bit slow the first week, and I kind of finish good. But I tried to hold up the form for the Worlds, because when you finish the Vuelta, if you look over the last few years, the guys who finished the Vuelta, a lot of the guys have the top results in September and October. So I was hoping to be able to push it a bit more, but I kind of made it all the way to the Worlds. But after the Worlds, I really felt that every training spin was digging deep in the mental. I felt that I had given everything, and 2, physically already I felt in Lombardy that I had not much left.
You had been banging on the door for a while in terms of a Grand Tour stage. When you were second on the stage in the Vuelta a few years ago, you were second on the stage of the Tour. So how big was the moment to cross that line early in the Vuelta and to take the stage win? Yeah,
that was a massive relief. That day, it was funny. A lot of people around me had that feeling. When we did the Reco a couple of days before of the climb, and the guys saying, "Yeah, Nico, this is perfect for you. If it's a 30-man bunch sprint, you could get a top result here," because that's kind of what we were expecting. We're thinking about 20, 25 guys and kind of kicker, and you could have a top result. And then in the morning in the briefing, Bjorn comes up to me and grabs me by the shoulder and says, "Nico, you're winning today." Says, "Okay, boss." And but anyway, that was everyone was behind me that day, and coming into the finish, I was fighting a lot to be on Valverde's wheel for the sprint, and then eventually I changed of plan. I see Koenig attacking, and I was like, he could go and win the stage. And then I thought, maybe because I've been, I had, strangely enough, I had said that I was ready and I was going to be my year in the Vuelta. A lot of people didn't see me, and also, the team had Roman Kruziger as the official leader, so I was like, maybe if I attack, anybody's going to look around and see Valverde, look around and see Rodriguez, look around and see Roman, and if I go, I could get an opening, because I'm kind of under radar. So I think at that stage, when I went, that's kind of what happened. They looked around left, right, and see who was going to chase me. And then eventually I was gone back on Koenig's wheel, and Moreno came back up with Pozzo Vivo, and then it was you know, I had always dreamed to win that kind of race in that scenario on a kind of mountaintop finish, and it wasn't a. It was a mountain that suited me. Like, it wasn't a 25% for 25k where, you know, after a breakaway, whatever. It was a proper 4 or 5% climb, big road, 25 riders, and attacking the finish and winning. It was really winning in the way that I would have loved to win.
Wearing the red jersey as well, leading a Grand Tour must have been also huge.
Yeah, that also. It was just like being second a few times in the other races. I was so close 2 years ago already in the Vuelta, but I missed out. I think it was by 12 or 13 seconds. But I was actually potential leader during the climb, and then eventually I think it was Rodriguez just closed the gap behind. It was last year when I went away with Froome and Contador, and then the two of them sat up, and I continued, and I only missed the jersey for about 12 seconds, I think, and then in the Tour I only missed it for 8 seconds.
On your birthday?
On my birthday, yeah. So that was pretty frustrating, and you know, I was like, oh, it's just like the morning of the team time trial, I firmly believed that if there was one time in my career so far that I felt that I could take it, was that day, and I, you know, we had an amazing team to ride the Team TT, and I really believed that I could take it, and you know, it was just so close by 8 seconds. I was like, oh, anyway, and then when I won the stage in the Vuelta, I also missed the jersey by 8 seconds. I was like, no, here we go again, another 8 seconds. Looking back at it now, I think it was actually great to take it on 2 different occasions. It gave me 2 kind of high. You know, when I took the jersey, I was like all overexcited again. It was a great feeling.
You held all the leaders' jerseys during the race, and then went on to finish 5th overall. So, what has that done for your confidence as an athlete?
Well, like, it wasn't much because I was 6th a few years ago, but I just think that, you know, 6 is not 5th, and it sounds stupid, but top 5 is from 5 onwards, not 6 onwards, you know. And for me, psychologically, to be able to say, all right, I've done my top 5 in the Grand Tour, because I like to take it by steps, you know. I was like, all right, I'll be top 15, and I was top 15 a few years ago, and then I was like, my first Vuelta I was 13th, and then I was like, all right, next step is going to be top 10, and then 1 year I was 6th, and then like, all right, now I have to show some improvement, and I have to be top 5, and then the years after I was once 12th, and didn't work out. The other year I was 15th, and I was like, nope, this is not working for me. I know I can be that top 5, and I need that top 5. And then you know, going into that position and being so high up in GC one day, and also had 2 bad days, one with the rain and then Longiro where I suffered, but I had a bit of a time margin, so I kind of dug deep but played it safe to control rather than to really give everything to save every second. But you know, at some stage with the race, like, oh, maybe I could even podium this. I was optimistic, very optimistic, because I had some very strong competitors against me. But you know, that's one thing that is great about cycling and sport in general, is a little margin of dream that you can give yourself.
You finished up, I mean, you did Lombardy, but the Worlds was kind of your last big objective of the year. Can you talk about the crashes that day, how crazy it was, how chaotic it was in the bunch? Yeah,
it was pretty chaotic. Already from the neutral zone, there was a crash after about 300 meters. I was like, oh, this is going to be a long day. And, you know, even at some stage, just before coming back into Montecatini, it didn't look that bad. I was like, oh, this is great. It's clearing up. It's going to be good. The roads are going to dry up in the center, and it's going to be a great day. And about 10 minutes after, it was pitch black, and you know, thunderstorm, and it was just crazy. And there was guys crashing just on the, you know, just on the straight line, not even touching brakes, just like bike lips off, and off they go, and taking 4 or 5 guys with them. So it was pretty. Every roundabout you could hear crack behind you, or every descent there was guys falling in front, behind. And yeah, eventually came my turn too, and then I didn't realize that Sam had crashed just before. I think someone put his pedal in his spokes or something like that on the climb. And then as I was riding back to the finish, I tried to get up and go, and it was just the first corner I came up, the guy in front of me went straight into the barrier and said, "Oh, that's it." So as the team car passed by, I told Neil, I said, "Listen, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I've that crash kind of I think it was my crash plus seeing all the guys crashes every single time. Like I could not have afforded to crash a second time that day, and the race was lost. It was already hard enough to stay on the wheel when you're in 10th position. So imagine when you're 3 minutes down, lying in the gutter. So I was like, all right, that's it. I was really sorry and a bit pissed off, and just put my backpack on and cycled back down to the hotel with Matt and Sam, who had waited for me.